Anyone else? I know sometimes, it's a delicate topic, right? And you don't want to turn that person away. You don't want to come across as being oh, they holy, whatever. They think they better than, or whatever, you know. Sometimes what I try to do, I try to use myself as an example. I may say, well, when I have issues like that, I turn to God, you know, or I say, I used to have trouble like this, when I was living my life a certain way, but I started living my life better. I started learning better and started doing better. Now I'm still struggling. I'm not doing perfect. I'm trying to do a little better. But I'm gonna tell you, when I started doing a little better, I wasn't having those issues. I try to say it that way, like I was kind of in that spot too. Maybe not as bad as you were, but I wasn't bad as you now. But I was kind of in that spot too, but I've learned, and I try to, and that's one way now. But what did we learn? We talked about, about discipleship before and being shy about it or getting out of your comfort zone. What what did we learn? You remember that lesson about God is gonna be with us and He's gonna tell us what to say. He's gonna tell us what to say. But yet we still shy away from saying the right thing. But and we're thinking about it and we're close to saying it. It's on the tip of our tongue, but then we just kind of, you know, you know. I don't know. Maybe that's something we need to all do. Just when you go home, practice on how you would bring that into the conversation. Just kind of imagine somebody telling you something or somebody doing something. So well, in this situation, I'd probably say this too, and say it out loud and hear how maybe see how it sounds to yourself. Say, well, no, that doesn't sound right. Let me say it this way. Maybe practice it. Have y'all ever done that? I mean, if you're gonna sing a song, do you practice songs you're gonna sing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you want it to sound right, right? So we won't. If we're worried about how what we're gonna say is gonna sound, maybe we ought to practice.
Now sometimes if you
Practice how
have
we respond to people.
to say something to somebody and there's something gonna be kind of touchy, I know
Hmm
it probably sounds crazy, but I have the whole thing played out of my mind.
hmm
Like they might say this, then you say that,
Yeah. Think about it.
and you're trying to place out. Okay, it ain't so much what you're saying, but what words you pick and what tone
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
say
yeah,
it in.
yeah. Many times it is. How many of you have, I don't know, had to give a speech? You practice on what you're gonna say, right? Uh, how many times have you had to have a talk with somebody? Men, how many times well, hopefully you only did it one time, but Joe probably did it more than once, right? You had to go ask a woman to marry you. You kind of think about how you're gonna ask her, right? You kind of set the tone. Okay, I'm gonna take her to this nice restaurant, get the mood right. Then I'm gonna slip that ring on her finger, or whatever. You kind of plan it. So now I know the conversations, it's hard to plan a conversation. Say, well, I don't know if somebody gonna come up to me and talk about this, but if it's happened before, it probably happened again. So let's think about some situations and put ourselves in that situation and just kind of say, you know, I think if somebody came to me and had this issue, I think I'd say this. Or if I need to tell them this, what are some ways? In fact, we can do it right now. All right, so I'm not living my life very well. Okay. Me and Adrian having problems. All right. And I'm telling you all these things that we having problems about her being mad all the time. And the reason she's mad all the time because I've been stepping out on her. All right. Right. All right. More than once. She done caught me more than once. All right. So now you know this because we've been talking. I tell you about, stuff at work or whatever, tell me about it. All right. So now I'm like, well, I'm living right now. I'm not cheating on her no more. But she still don't trip. I went to the store, got me some cigarettes the other day, and she swore I was flirting with the lady behind the counter. All right. So I don't understand why she don't trust me. All right. So now what would you say to me? How would you bring the Lord into this? How would you advise, or would you even advise me of it? What would you say? What's a way you could kind of bring that up without making me mad? That's a touchy subject, right? How would you tell me, hey, if you start living your life right, maybe you'll start going to church with, like Adrian goes to church, I don't go to church, but she does. All right, so she attends church, I don't. So what could you tell me?
I'll tell you that probably one of the most important things that you can have in your marriage is having God in the middle of it. Because every issue that comes up between a husband and wife, y'all are not always able to solve them by yourself. And you're never gonna really be able to have the peace that you would have if he was in your marriage guide.
Yeah, yeah, good. What else? What else? Women folk, women folk. What, what would y'all say to me? So I'm a man, so I come to the woman because I want a woman's point of view because y'all understand how Adrian feel, right? Y'all understand how Adrian feel.
They might give you a prime, man.
What would y'all tell me?
I'll say, I would tell you to look within and put yourself in her shoes.
Okay. Self in her shoes. Okay. All right.
Would you trust me?
Huh?
I said, would you trust you?
Yeah. Would you trust you? You know you. I've been right. It's been at least 2, 3 weeks. At least 2, 3. At least 2, 3. Yeah. What else? What else? Any encouragement? What would you say? Just keep trying. Keep you just keep doing the right thing. You may can tell something like, hey, look, you can't control how she's gonna feel, but you can control what you do. You just keep doing the right thing. She'll see you. She'll see you doing the right thing. And what's the right thing? Say, hey, she goes to church every Sunday. She goes to church every Wednesday. Why don't you start going to church with her? Can you throw that in there? You know, or you can say, hey, hey, look, when you made your marriage vows, you said them in front of God, right? You know, but yet you don't go to church. Something. How can we? How can you? You know, let's practice that. Let's think about that. If we're going to be sowers of the seed, you know, most farmers have a plan for how they're going to plant their crop, right? I mean, if they're going to plant that crop in the middle of June, what you think they're going to do? What's one important thing they probably need to be planning to do?
They gonna prepare the soul.
Yeah. Prepare the soil. It's the middle of June. What think they're going to do? Like a day like today, they're going to water it, right? So they're going to have to make plans for that, aren't they? Right? So we need to be making plans. How are we going to plant some seeds and cultivate the soil and plant those seeds and water? We need to be doing that, don't we? We need to be doing that. So let's practice it. Let's make a plan. Let's make a plan that yeah, we're gonna practice sowing some seeds. We're gonna practice having difficult conversations and bringing the Lord into it and advising people about the Lord, during conversations, you know. And it may not be a difficult conversation. It may just be talking about going shopping. I don't know, but but just think of different scenarios and how you could possibly bring the Lord into the conversation. All right, to plant some seeds, plant some seeds. All right, let's turn to First Corinthians, the third chapter, verses 5 through 8.
Sure.
First Corinthians 3, 5 through 8. This kind of falls into what I just said.
What then is Apollos and what is Paul? Servants through whom we believe, even as the Lord gave opportunity to each one. I planted, Apollos watered, but God was causing the growth. So then neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but God who causes the growth. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, but each will receive his own reward according to his own labor.
Okay, all right. So, um, the Corinthians were kind of separating themselves based on who had kind of brought them, to Christ. And so and then so this is Paul saying, does it really matter whether it was Apollos, that you were learning from, or whether it was me or whatever, we're just watering what, God is, we're really all one. So that's something for us to remember as well, is that all of us, are sowing seeds, but God's doing the work, right? God's doing the work. As he said, I planted, Apollos watered, but God was causing the growth. All right. So it's God who causes the growth. Yeah. All right. So, but evangelism, discipleship, sowing seeds is a process. It is a process. We just talked about it a little bit, before. You got to prepare the soil. You got to water it. Maybe throw a little fertilizer on there. Certain times of the year. Certain things grow certain times of the year. Certain things won't grow certain times of the year, right? Can you plant corn year long, year round? I don't know, can you? Now they probably developing some stuff that you can make in, but usually corn is grown certain times of the year. Watermelons. When is watermelons season? Right now, right? Right now is watermelon. So now you can buy watermelons in December, but they ain't just come out the ground, did they? At least not here. Not from around here. Now I think them Florida watermelons start coming up early part of the summer. Huh? Last month, yeah. Now Georgia, especially South Georgia, Cordele, they theirs usually right around the 4th of July. Right around 4th of July. In fact, you go up there right now, they probably got all kind of watermelons up there right now. Um, 'cause they've had good weather for it. So, but certain times, so you got to know how to plant. You got to, have some knowledge about the growth, you know, when to, when not to, right? Right. And there's also, other types of, methods, and, you know, like they say you should plant one kind of crop one year, and after so many years, you shouldn't just keep planting the same crop, right? In the same place,
Yeah.
right? Right. You should plant something else over here. Then whatever you was planting over here, you probably need to go over here and start planting that, right? Because the same crop takes away from the soil, and next thing you know, it's not growing. If you keep planting the same place. See, so you got to know these things, these methods, and all. But how do you know these methods?
It's a study.
Do some studying, and some of it may be trial and error. You tried this or tried that, it worked well. Ah, that didn't work so well, right? That could be the same thing when you're talking to someone. You know, okay, well, I tried saying this to him, that didn't work so well. You know, so next time try maybe a little different method, right? Trial and error. You know, and after years of doing it, let's think about this. Let's just say, you started sewing, or you started speaking to someone, and let's say you started trying to do that 5 years ago. How much better today would you be than today than 5 years ago, right?
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit better, right? If you just got a little bit better, you'd be a lot better by now, 5 years. You know. So if you start right now, 5 years from now, you'll be a whole lot better. So if you're doubting about, well, I don't know what to say, I don't know how to say it. Like I said, let's practice it, put it into action, trial and error, a little bit of trial and error. 5 years from now, you'll be a pro at it, right? If you had started 5 years ago, you'll be a pro by now. So just throw it out. Y'all may catch it, y'all may not catch it, but I throw it. All right, just all right. But yeah, we are to be disciples. We are to sow. That's what God expects us to do. And that's what Jesus is saying by this parable. All right, so let's go back to Matthew 13, and so um, concentrate on like verses 1 through 9. All right, so which is the, I guess basically the parable itself. Well, he's saying the sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell beside the road, and the birds came and ate them up. Others fell on the rocky places where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up because they had no depth of soil. When the sun had risen, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. Others fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked them out. And others fell on the good soil and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear. All right, so does that remind you of anything? Does that tell us anything? What's it telling us? He goes on to explain who, these different soils, right?
Right.
We talked about who the soils were, right? Yeah, those that are hearing. So what is it telling us we need to do with our seed? How should we be sowing the seed of God, the word of God, right? What are we going to run up against?
All different types of adverse conditions of harvest, soil,
Mm-hmm.
and that we can't control the soil that the seed lands on. So just put it out.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Some of it's going to be good soil, some of it's not going to be good soil. You know, some of it's going to be, some of it may be good soil, but it may have thorns. You know, are there any people, do you know any people that have thorns in their life? Maybe a lot of, they call it baggage and stuff nowadays, right? Maybe a lot has happened to them. Maybe they had a difficult childhood. Maybe a loved one scorned them in some way, or did something to affect them. And so you're trying to, you know, kind of, you know, teach them, but they've got a lot of hate in their heart. The world has taught them things that, and so that it's difficult for them to give themselves. There are those that'll jump on the bandwagon quick, right?
Yeah.
There's some, oh yeah, 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 and they'll come to church, but after a few weeks, they stop coming. They go right back to their old ways because that soil it wasn't planted deeply. It was laying on top, you know, or it gets scorched by the sun or something like that, right? But 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 yeah, but at first, oh yeah, oh yeah, exactly what I need. Or maybe they were going through something, and once they got past that, they they gone. See you later, God. I'll come back to see you if anything ever happens to me again. But once they get, through that situation, they gone.
And we think about a lot of times people get where they ain't feeling too good.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the doctor, go get their little checkup done, they give them some medicine, some antibiotics, and they take about half of the bottle. As soon as they start feeling better, they quit taking
Hey, quit taking it on it. Quit taking it. Quit taking it right there. I was just talking to somebody about that. They said they didn't want to take their medicine. I ain't gonna tell y'all who it was. Y'all can probably guess.
it.
They said they was taking it. They had to stop taking that medicine. But then 2 minutes later, they was telling me they was in pain. I like, oh, maybe you need to start taking that medicine. Go back to taking that medicine. But yeah, but people do that, don't they? I kind of do it too. You don't want to get hooked on that stuff. I can understand. I can understand. But uh-huh, uh-huh. See somebody pointing and somebody looking away, so I know exactly. So you know, but but it's on the plant those seeds is not planted deeply. Someone said you got to work the soil, right? You know, you don't just scrape the top of it, do you? Those harrows, they down in there, and they get those discs and all that. They down in that deep now. They down in that deep. All right, all right.
That first one is one that sticks out to me because it's kind of like you'll try to put something out there for somebody that's going to be something encouraging them in that direction.
Hmm.
And it said that bird come by and eat seed
Yep.
with.
Yep. I was just gonna bring
Like as
that up.
soon as you give them something good,
Huh.
they got something that's already what we call that when we listened before we were doing about the about having the wall. It wasn't wall. It's a different word we use.
Yeah. Barriers.
Barriers in their mind. And
Hmm.
it's like something that'll come up that they learned
Hmm.
that was a lie.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
gave them the truth. But they gonna come back to the truth with this lie they hold on to.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. They have it within themselves. But also, who could the birds be?
Yeah.
It could be their friends, their family. Oh yeah, you tell them something good, and they're like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. And they may go tell somebody else about it. Like, I know you ain't listening to that Jesus stuff. Huh? Huh? What church is that? Oh no, man, I wouldn't go to that church. Whatever, right? Right? If I were you, I'd watch what they talking about over there. Or whatever, or they start talking about the word. I mean, how can you believe what the Bible say? Man wrote that. God didn't really write that. That's a man writing that stuff. It's just like our history. You know how they say black folks ain't done nothing. With the history book, they write the same things, and there are there are female preachers who claim, or people that support female preachers that say, well, men wrote the Bible. That's why they say women can't be preachers because a man wrote that, right? And look, they may be absolutely positively right. But I ain't, I don't, it was like, so it's like either you believe this word or you don't believe this word. You can't say, well, this I believe God wrote, but this I don't believe God wrote. Can you? So you just picking and choosing, so either you believe it or you don't, you know? So I choose to believe that this is God's word, you know? But they want to say, well, them men change what God said. Well, if that was the case, don't you think God would have known that? So he would have gone to a woman and have a woman write it. Why didn't he do that? If he thought men were gonna change it, if he knew men were gonna change it. So that's just one argument. I'm not into that, Does I hate believing. I'm just saying what I believe. The word is the word. It's but anyway, but yeah, you sow that seed out on the side of the road. The birds come and get it. So maybe what are some things? Brother Battle said something about working the soil. How can you work the soil? What's the way to work the soil?
I think just trying to spend time with the person and actually investing in them, the person. Like, hey, you're getting the experience. Me walking with you. So you're getting to see that, okay, even though I'm throwing this seed out, you're seeing more than just me occasionally throwing some seed out and saying, trying to give you something to do.
Mm-hmm. It could be what you're saying, could be what you're doing, could be the way you're saying or the way you're doing things. You know, I was saying earlier, how you treat people or how they see you reacting to something, that is a way of teaching them, you know. So you could be tilling the soil just by what was it the time sheets I said? Okay, you ain't got to change the way you accept it. Okay, yeah, man, I wish we didn't have to do this, but hey, that's what they said do. Let's do it. Let's change the way we do our time sheets. Fine. You know, and they see that you have a calm demeanor about this. Everybody else all mad about it, and you like, hey, you know, are they still gonna pay me if I change the way I do my time sheet? Yeah, they gonna still pay you. Okay, I think I'll go ahead and change the way I do my time sheet. You know, you know, you're tilling soil. You're spending time. You can't just sometimes you can't just throw that seed out there like I said that soil may not be as good. Sometimes you can take soil and mix it with something else, right?
Yeah.
Put some other nutrients in there. So that soil may not be good, but you got to mix it with something to, that's more accepting. What's that? That's right. That's right. But that fertilizer in there, we just plant grass on the side of the road. We build roads, and so GDOT has rules for what kind of grass seed you put out there. They got rules for how you got to till it up and all that. But you got to test that soil and in the lab, and it comes back and tells you what kind of fertilizer and how much fertilizer to put out there, right? So, so you got to work it. You got to work that soil, and there's a certain way to do it. So yeah, so that soil that comes to you it may be hard and rocky, but it's up to us. We need to till it and fertilize it, get it to where it can accept that seed, and that seed can grow. And once it's there, God will do the growing, but we're supposed to plant the seed, right? We're the sower. So let's sow that seed. All right. So what time is it? I can't see them. Somebody standing right in front of the clock. I don't know. Daddy's a glass maker. Your daddy a glass maker. That's what people used to ask you little. All right. 7:56. All right. So we'll end right there. Um, but we have a call to sow. We should be sowing. We should be the sower. And that's part of discipleship. That is discipleship. Okay. So so let's do that. So what we're gonna talk about, what's the homework we're gonna do?
Right.
You're gonna practice. You're gonna think of scenarios in your head of how someone may come to you, of a conversation you may have with someone, and it may be the excellent opportunity to share with them, what you know, what you've learned, what you believe,